Šioje Lietuva Amerika serijoje kalbame su Michael Sieveking, AJC, American Jewish Committee transatlantinių reikalų direktoriumi ir žmogumi, kuris stovėjo pačiame fronto linijų susikirtime tarp Amerikos, Europos ir Izraelio jau daugelį metų. Michael ne tik analizuoja antisemitizmo grįžimą į politinę ir visuomeninę Europą, jis realiai kovoja su tuo kiekvieną dieną. Šioje serijoje kalbame apie antisemitizmo šaknis, apie tai, kodėl gynyba nuo Rusijos ar parama Izraeliui nėra nišinės temos, o išlikimo klausimas. Ir apie tai, kaip Europos sostinės šiandien kartais vis dar nepasirinka aiškios pusės tarp gėrio ir blogio. Tai pokalbis ne tik apie praeitį, o apie mūsų šiandieną ir mūsų atsakomybę. Tad linkiu pasiklausyti, gero klausimo, tikiuosi, kad patiks.
I'm thrilled to see you, Žygis, again, and Vincentas. It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your podcast.
The pleasure is mine.
The best regards to you from Andy Baker. I just met him in the street. I said, I'm doing podcast with Michael. Really? No, it can be. Yes, I said, okay, so best regards to Michael.
Thank you. It's great to hear.
Okay, so let's maybe do like that. Maybe you can say a few words about AJC, because maybe not everyone knows about you. I could say from my side that, you've been an organization that helped, I would say, the most to enter, to NATO, to fight for our independence. You've been always with captive nations and so on. But maybe you tell a few words about yourself, your organization, and we start moving to all our front lines.
Outstanding. Good. Are we recording already, or
where are we? This is
on the right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, again, thank you for having me, Žygis and Vincentas. It's a real pleasure. I am speaking to you from AJC's offices in Washington, D.C. And as you requested, and I'm very happy to share generally about the American Jewish Committee. Our organization was founded in 1906. So we're going on our 120th anniversary of our founding. And we are a nonpartisan nonprofit in the United States. We advocate for the well-being of Israel and the Jewish people. We are often described as the global advocacy organization for the Jewish people. That is to say, I know, Žygis, you know your way around DC. There is no shortage of advocacy organizations doing important work on many of the issues that we care about. And where AJC, the American Jewish Committee, has its unique niche and perspectives is that we're truly international, not only in what we say and how we argue our case, but also through our presence in many countries of the world. We have 16 overseas posts. We have 26 offices actually across the United States. And we are in constant dialogue with foreign governments, with our own government here in the United States, to promote policies that will benefit the security and the well-being of the Jewish people. Since October 7th, it won't surprise you that many of those conversations have become even more urgent, considering the rise of anti-Semitism, the new challenges Israel has been facing on the security front. While I would qualify new in the sense that what we saw on October 7th was a horrendous terror attack that was really the opening of a cascading attack, a number of attacks from the Iranian regime's proxies, through the Houthis, through Hezbollah, Lebanon, and the Hamas terror organization itself. And one of the topics very close to our heart that we've been advocating on and drawing attention to is the fate of hostages. And that is still of prime concern to us. And I should mention, for the context of this discussion, that we are have a longstanding history and current engagement on supporting the Ukrainian nation's quest for freedom and territorial integrity. So from the start starting in 2014 with the initial invasion, followed by the full-scale invasion in 2022, AJC has been at Ukraine's side, and we have a keen understanding of and empathy for the security situation that especially our friends in Central Europe have, and Lithuania being a frontline country of our sacred alliance of NATO is another indication of where we come out on the need to strengthen the resolve of Western democracies to stand together against tyrannical, theocratic, in some cases, but certainly all aggressive regimes that have come together to fight against our values, against the dignity of human life through the Russian aggression in Ukraine, through Iran's persistent aggression against Israel, against the Jewish people that long predates October 7th, and yet had come to that disastrous situation. Maybe perhaps I'll stop there, and with that, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight one element of our activities here at a time when NATO enlargement, in the wake of the end of the Cold War, was still a distant dream for those freedom-loving countries in Europe who aspired to be not only freed of the yoke of Russia, of the Soviet Union at the time, and later Russia, but also sought to be more deeply integrated with the Western community of values and the defense alliance of NATO. It was our CEO at the time, David Harris, who spoke vociferously in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing on the merits of the enlargement of NATO to include, this was the first tranche with the Czechs, Hungary, and Poland. But it's consistently a message that we've been sending to our own members of Congress, from administration to administration, over the years, to highlight the need for a very principled stance. And the understanding of it is not simply out of a sense of generosity, for lack of a better word, but truly it is. You will find and you will see in history that Jewish life will thrive and flourish in democratic societies. It will thrive in environments where fundamental rights are respected and celebrated. So for us, it was a very easy decision to support Ukraine over the years, as well as our friends in Central Europe. And Žygimantas, I know you've been for many years closely working with us and being with us on this journey toward strengthening that resolve, and your particular attention to Israel's security needs, to the understanding of the need to strengthen Jewish life in Europe, is something we've always valued very much. So look forward to diving into some of the other issues, and of course, stating the obvious, we're in another state of emergency in Israel right now, so we can talk about that, I'm sure.
I will maybe ask first, maybe Vincentas, as always, we will do it in duo. So for me, your organization is the example how to mobilize democracies for defense of freedom. And in general, Jewish communities, for me, they were always a litmus test that something is really going wrong with this world. When anti-Semitism is on rise, when you are under attack, then we are next. So tell me, look into what's happening right now in Israel with those attacks. Honestly, I think overwhelming majority of Lithuanians, they are very much with Israel, because they see it like you attack and annihilate one of the biggest friends of Russia, who is supplying weapons, technologies, and just kills on every day Ukrainians, our brothers and sisters. And on the other hand, they kill Israelis, what happened on October 7th. So we have the same enemies. I really hope that you that Israel defeat that enemy. But do you think we one day might reach the point that Americans stand in the same way for Ukraine like they stand with Israel today? Because this story with Ukraine, it's like never ending. It started in Bucharest 2008. And, with each president, we are like going a crash course on Russia. And they all make mistakes. They all start with appeasement. And then finally they end with something, but it's never enough. And Ukrainians are suffering and suffering. So do you think we could, convince Americans, as you did, for Baltics and Central Europeans, that finally it's the same front line? We are democracies. We are minorities of people who live free. And this is, for the biggest democracy, America, to stand with us, to support us, because it's the same fight.
Right. I think it's a great question. I would slightly qualify premise that you made and state that I do feel that the vast majority of Americans are strongly supportive of Ukraine. If you are on Capitol Hill, you will see a lot of Ukrainian flags hoisted in front of congressional offices on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of both chambers of Congress. So I believe that is very much reflective of the support that the broader American public feels for Ukraine. And I think there are many reasons for this. One of them, of course, is the history of the Cold War and America's leadership role and pivotal role in ending the predominance of the Russian Empire under different guise of the Soviet Union over parts of Central Europe. So I believe that there is still that understanding that America can and should play a role in supporting captive nations. I don't think that has changed fundamentally. Well, at the same time, you are suggesting about the relationship that America has with Israel. It is a little bit like comparing apples and oranges, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, but I think different arguments here and there are necessary. What both struggles that Israel and Ukraine have in common is that these are democracies. These are frontline states that are bearing the brunt of the oppression that is coming out externally through countries like Russia and Ukraine that are subjugating their neighbors, that are utilizing them to, in the case of Israel, to attack Israel since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. So this is a consistent effort on the part of the regime to annihilate the Jewish state. And I think if there's one thing, and there are many, but if there's one thing to highlight that the Jewish people have learned over the millennia, is that if someone is declaring that they wish to eliminate, to destroy the Jewish people, believe them. And what you see now with Israel's actions is to confront that threat head on. Clearly, there is coordination happening. We are seeing the United States and other countries in the region, and if I'm not mistaken, a number of European countries helping with the interception of missiles. We have major presence in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Mediterranean broadly, the Red Sea. So we have a lot of U.S. presence in the region that ought to serve as a further deterrence. To get back, it did trail off slightly. What So I believe your question was, what can the Ukrainian community or those who support Ukrainian American community perhaps learn from the American Jewish experience? And my first sense is to really highlight the relatedness and the interconnectedness of the struggles, to remind Americans of the gratitude that Central Europeans and those affected by this ghastly invasion have for the provision of arms and other measures to help them in their defense. Since these two countries, though, are very different in terms of where they, in terms of the relationships that have been built, it's again maybe hard to compare. What I would say is that when it comes to the need to strengthen those the resolve on both sides is to highlight the commonalities that exist. We are in a political moment now where there is more hesitation to have direct involvement, direct American involvement. I do not believe that is what the Ukrainians are asking, or the Israelis for that matter. But Vincentas, please.
If I may interrupt, I mean, you just touched on a point that I wanted to bring up and I wanted to ask you about. As of late in Europe, especially, we've seen institutions and the rhetoric in the public space kind of drift away from supporting Israel. I just wanted to ask you how we can fight this sort of shift in, I wouldn't call it public opinion, but I definitely call it institutional opinion. How do we shift away from that and really reinforce that moral spine of remembering who's in the right, and how do we stop people from equivocating the actions of Israel and the actions of Iran? Because that's just a logical fallacy, right?
I couldn't agree more with your question, for asking that question, and B, the tendencies that we're seeing of late to somehow compare or liken the actions of a democracy defending itself. This is applicable to both Ukraine and Israel, while equivocating that, as you said, with the actions of the enemies. Generally, the discussion is not new. I think every war over the past few decades has there is a bent in the media that we are seeing, which is oftentimes when we sort of drill into the examples post October 7th, there were incidences of just incorrect reporting. We hear about numbers coming out of the so-called Gaza Health Ministry of casualty figures that are wildly overstated, complete conjecture minutes after a strike, to come up with hundreds of casualties of Palestinian civilians, every one of which is, of course, a tragedy. However, the factual information usually takes longer to come through, and I do think Israel has done a good job of explaining its case, and yet it still faces an uphill struggle in the global public opinion. That, I think, a good indicator of that is what is happening at the United Nations when it comes to resolutions on the Middle East. You will find and you will see that the UNGA has to this day not condemned Hamas for its brutal terror attack of October 7th, much less the Security Council. And there are simply some troubling tendencies on the international stage, and Israel's grateful, and I think more broadly the Jewish and pro-Israel world, for those countries that speak out. And I know that Lithuania is one of those that has been tended to be supportive, and I think that much of the protests we're seeing that often bleed into anti-Semitism on college campuses, especially in the wake of October 7th, but since in recent months as well, just casts a very unfair light on Israel's actions. To be fair, to be candid, does Israel always do everything right? No, it's a democracy, and there are errors that have been made, but we should measure any country's ability to wage a just war in the way that it handles incidences where mistakes are made, and I believe Israel has excelled in that category. And I think the broader question is how is this affecting our society more broadly through anti-Semitism and through other tendencies when a fellow democracy is held to different standards than other countries.
Michael, just again, coming back to the phenomenon of AJC, because I think you are phenomenal. You are champion of advocacy, really. Tell me a bit like what I see from what you do, this bipartisan approach of yours. I think one of the mistakes of some countries, including maybe a bit of Ukraine, that you can never put all the eggs in one basket. America is very vibrant democracy, and if you see the leader, you run to him, especially if leader is a bit radical, a bit isolationist. You run, you speak, you approach, and you create that unity. Is it right? Is it like this is one of your success, formulas? Because I think we learned it from you as Lithuanians. As I said, as most of Lithuanian American leaders told me, Žygis, we learned it from Jewish organizations. They, Refuse Nikki, all other movements. You did it great.
Well, thank you. And I think it's certainly true that in our political system, there is tremendous wisdom in nonpartisanship and effectiveness to be had by speaking with both sides of the aisle. And, unlike some political systems in Europe that are more complicated in terms of the party, the number of parties that you are dealing with, this shouldn't sort of obfuscate the fact that within each party, you will still find a lot of diversity on the points of view as it relates to Israel and more broadly Jewish issues. So my recommendation, and I know that your embassies, I'm sure, are doing this. Embassies, I mean, in the plural, those in the Baltic, among the Baltic allies, and broadly in Eastern Europe, Central Europe, is to speak with leaders on both sides of the aisle, and also to really dig in to understand what is motivating those who are perhaps holding views that we would disagree with. The way we do it is to really lean in on the fact that anti-Semitism is not a new phenomenon. It is one that is constantly evolving and rearing its ugly head through the conveyance of anti-Western, anti-American, so to speak, views, and it comes in the guise of this ideology that somehow conceives of Israel as this sort of quote unquote colonial enterprise, which in fact couldn't be further from the truth. So I think explaining one's case and explaining how Israel is not only a vibrant democracy, but also very much what's the word? Native to the region is one that can lead to success on both sides of the aisle.
Actually, if I might add on to that, in two, in a sense, separate points. First and foremost, and forgive me for saying this, but I'm sure you'll agree with me. We see that on most or many fronts, the states are starting to look inwards, right? America's looking inwards, more isolationist. how can we as Europeans and we as Europe in general pick up the slack left off by America in order to really get that victory in Ukraine and in the Middle East for democracy and for freedom?
Well, isolationism, and I know that you both know this, is not a new phenomenon in American history, American recent history of the 20th century. What I think is driving this current thinking is a very recent, vivid memory of what those who purport these views describe as forever wars. We do not want to be, back in Afghanistan with boots on the ground, without an exit strategy, the Iraq War. So these are very recent phenomena that have been playing out in the political system. But I think again, we are a nonpartisan organization and we don't support candidates or parties per se, but where we speak out is the need for U.S. global leadership. And I think appealing to those in Congress and the administration to really use that leadership to advance American interests, and understanding that supporting Ukraine is in its fight for its own territory, that this has a direct national security implication for the United States is an important one to remind our friends of, because if we allow Ukraine to fall, so to speak, who's to say that a country like China won't be emboldened to go into Taiwan? That with Iran and Israel now, that's a different sort of ballpark or different situation altogether, given the last few days. But it could very much embolden to Moscow to further expand its reach, and it's shown its willingness to do that in the past, whether it's in Georgia or other parts of neighboring countries, to just quell these democratic movements.
Of course, it's important to note as well, sorry, Zhigi, for interrupting that. Of course, I mean, Russia, Iran, China, they're all part of that same axis of evil, working both against Israel and against Ukraine, against freedom in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
As objective, observer of a lot of historical events, including isolationism and all those dynamics, I'm kind of absolutely sure that while Israel is already winning and prevailing, and from Syria to Iran, I think we will see one day Iranian ayatollahs hiding in Moscow, and I think region is moving into the direction the liberal democracies want. But what about Ukraine? It's like it took so long, and it takes so long. Bush, the president in 2008, was lobbying Ukrainian membership in NATO, then down to some kind of appeasement by Obama, then Biden kind of tried really to help, but he was afraid to win, to be honest. He was afraid of escalation. And now again, do you see light in the end of the tunnel? Because I'm a bit, nervous. Sometimes Russians are using crisis in Middle East to kind of show this pathetic attention, suggest that, they could be good negotiators, they could handle Iranians like they promised Obama to handle Syrian dictator. Of course, nothing happened. And then in return, they're asking Americans, give us free hand in Ukraine. And now we are approaching Hague NATO summit. There is no real NATO Ukrainian agenda. At the same time, drama is happening with EU. EU is not willing to start accession talks with Ukrainians because Hungarians are not helping. In August, we are draining out Biden. Persistent package is getting, at the bottom. And like, we are nervous if Americans are abandoning us, if they are trading Ukrainians into those Putin's kind of network and just giving up at another region in exchange, of course, of some neutrality in Iranian conflict. Do you think we can win the hearts, not only the hearts of American people, but sooner or later administration to get finally vote for Ukrainian, at least for Ukrainian invitation to NATO?
And I think when it comes to NATO enlargement and the inclusion or welcoming of NATO into Ukraine into NATO as an organization, you have in us a strong supporter of that endeavor. I am not sure if there's appetite right now to be pushing on that front. I simply, it's beyond sort of my area of expertise, to be perfectly honest. When it comes to the granular questions of membership, but the broader message of integrating Ukraine into the Western security architecture is one that should be welcomed, and that should be pursued further. You mentioned the EU front there also as well. You'll see other countries and that are members of the alliance that are not there. I do not think this administration is there, and yet there are other important steps that our allies can make to help Ukraine win this war. Getting back, Vincentas, to your question, I didn't sufficiently answer it. That what does this mean for Europe? And I think when we are seeing whether sort of we like the rhetoric, or not, we see that there is a higher level of concern that the U.S. may not be there. I don't think that is the case. I think the Article 5 is sacred, and yet you are seeing that Germany and other allies are upping their game, and when it comes to defense. So regardless of sort of how that came about, the fact that we now have a 5% per GDP expenditure on the table is something that we ought to welcome. And I think you'll find, again, not speaking for the government, of course, because we are private citizens at AJC. My sort of feeling is that this can only be welcomed if we see a stronger leadership role of European allies who are on the ground, and that will engender more willingness on the part of the of America to be that backstop when it comes to the defense.
All right, I'll be selfish. I'll take my last question at least. It's when it comes to advocacy and for is essentially advocating for ideas, for values, for freedom, for democracy. It's very important to have that backbone, right? That the rallying the troops around you. And as a member of a diasporic nation, as a Lithuanian, I look in awe at the Jewish people, at the Israeli nation being very capable of rallying those same troops around, members of the diaspora, around that shared idea, those shared values, and being, speaking all in unison in favor of those ideas, and constantly pushing and advocating for those same ideas. Selfishly, if you could tell me, any tips and tricks, any best practices on how to really get that diaspora working together for those same goals and values.
Well, I think the landscape of pro-Israel organizations in the United States is not a small group of organizations, think tanks, nonprofits that have a real stake in urging U.S. action to help Israel defend itself. And the case that certainly we make, and that many of our friends in this space make, is that this is not a selfless act of altruism though, it is more truly must be understood as being the divine self-interest of the United States to strengthen its own national security by having strong partners who are able to defend themselves. So in Israel, you have the specific, qualitative military edge that Israel has, and that it has been able to maintain. Thanks to Israeli and American ingenuity and investment. Tips and tricks. Well, I think leaning in on your own communities. I think that's really we can talk about values, and for some that may be abstract. Not to me, and not to think to anyone on this call, but I think we'll understanding that your communities are very much part of that American experience, and are should be petitioning their members of Congress in the way that they do is good policy and good politics.
And my last question exactly to the same direction. I remember in Israel, I came here there with 3 Baltic Musketeers, 3 Baltic Cheers, more or less immediately after October 7th. And I was asking one question. I asked, Israeli speaker of the House, of the Parliament, why don't you join EU or NATO, some kind of collective security organizations? They were looking to me like, why? And first of all, and that's more or less constant Jewish reply to me. Guys, Article 5 is great. Your trust that you will be defended by alliance is always great. But you know what? First of all, you have to be as strong as hell. Please invest into your own strength, in like you said, your own communities. Do maximum what you can. You cannot do everything by yourself, but at least 80% of problems you can solve with your own body, with your own country, with your own people. Be an example of that. And then, of course, you will have friends. But the stronger you are, the more friends you will actually have. So I think this is the secret of your success. You should always, first of all, rely on yourself, make yourself strong. Is it right? Is it like just what I understand about you?
Yeah. Well, Israel has demonstrated through decades of fending off enemies, whether it was the Arab armies that invaded Israel within days, hours of its founding in 1948, the Six-Day War that started with a preemptive strike, but the intelligence is in. We know where that was going to go. The Yom Kippur War followed a decade later. Israel is not in a position to be even conceivably able to rely fundamentally on a collective, larger community and of countries that would. So, this shouldn't, though, hide the fact that partners are very important. I don't think that NATO membership is something Israel is pursuing. There are many reasons for this, and I think we're seeing this play out as Israel is defending itself. Is that had it, there would have been. It's not a sort of realistic path in the future, but my understanding is that Israel's looking to be as close as possible with NATO and has understood its critical role as a defense alliance supporting largely democratic nations, and I think leaning in again on the common struggles that our democratic nations face is one that can be a winning argument here, and really ought to resonate also in the broader region.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I still believe that, I dream about the world where Israelis and Ukrainians, our strongest angels, are guarding the gates of our liberal and democratic world. We are together with or without NATO or EU. In EU, by the way, we are defending the idea that association agreement should be kept, and the deeper our ties will be with Israel, the better, because we have simply to learn a lot from you, how to survive in a very difficult world, how to create the most competitive, innovative, and strong and inspiring nation. And we've been learning from Jewish community from 13th century. I'm always saying that they're like all brothers and sisters for us, who've been building all Lithuanian state for centuries, and that's why I think this bond will be kept. We are with Israel, and we hope Israel will be with us in teaching how to build society that also be defended by those big, huge democracies like America. That is still the strongest of us. Thank you, Michael. I hope to see you in DC soon.
Absolutely.
Israel, and keep fighting for Ukraine.
Thank you. If you allow me to just to respond and thank you, Žygis, again, and Vincentas for this phenomenal opportunity to speak with you. I want to just also highlight one more thing that, of course, we're seeing now Israel continuing its campaign to preemptively eliminate the even possibility of an immediate passing of the threshold to nuclear capability by Iran. And I appreciate the need to understand the urgency of the issue. So we're really just urging our allies and our friends to have that understanding for Israel as it is on the front lines for all of us. This is not an isolated issue that threatens Israel exclusively. We are broadly under threat by this regime. And I want to also highlight really and emphasize that this is not a war against the people of Iran, who have themselves been victimized and subjugated by this regime. So this is an important point I want to highlight. And at the end of the day, Israel will do what it takes and what it needs to have its own, to ensure its own security. And it has done so in the past with the destruction of reactors in Iraq and in other parts of the Middle East. So this, that support is desperately needed and appreciated. And as we go into this next phase.
So as we Middle Ages for our freedom and yours. So it's of course together. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for this.
Thank you for your time, Michael. Thank you very much.
Okay. We ended that's all.
Recording?
Yeah.
Not recording. Yeah, Vincentas will cut it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, really, Michael, for everything, and
Thank you for the opportunity. Again, this was great. I'd love to see you again soon, hopefully. I'm sorry I missed you and on the Hill last week. I saw you from a friend, but wanted to make sure I said hello.
in reception, and your leader, that Deutsch was speaking. I still remember him as a congressman. He was great.
Yes, well, he still is on the right side of issues, whether it's obviously our issues, but Ukraine more broadly. And incident, I would have liked to have stayed, but there was actually a vigil on the steps of the Capitol to commemorate the lives of Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, who were murdered just a week after you came to visit us. So this is something I couldn't miss, and it was important to be there. But at the same time, obviously, thanks again for all your support and for coming to us so recently.
Thank you, Michael. See you.
Take care, Mike.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Vincentas.
Michael priminė tai, ką kartais net patys pamirštam, kad kova už laisvę nėra geografinė. Ji nesibaigia Ukrainos laukuose ar Gazos šešėliuose. Ji vyksta mūsų universitetuose, mūsų informacinėje erdvėje, mūsų politiniuose sprendimuose. Jo darbas, AJC, tai nėra diplomatinė rutina, tai kiekvienos dienos mūšis už vertybės, už aiškų pasaulio supratimą, kuriame vakarai nėra neutralūs, atsakingi. Jeigu mes norime, kad Lietuva būtų girdima, turim kalbėti aiškiai. Jei norim, kad mus gerbtų, turim stovėti kartu su tais, kurie gina tai, kas yra teisinga. Kaip Michael pats pasakė, pasirinkimo tarp gėrio ir blogio neturėtų būti sunku. Tad rinkimės teisingai ir garsiai, dalinkitės, prenumeruokite ir pakomentuokite. Iki sekančio.